Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Lynn and today I'm flipping the Spellbinders July 2024 club kits. As per usual for my flip videos, I'll be making one flat, one layered, one interactive, and one pop-up card. And I will be crafting with the 3D embossing folder, the small and large dies of the month, the glimmer of the month, the stencil of the month, and the stamp and die of the month. So here's a quick look at the 4 cards that I'll be making. My flip videos are on the long side, so I will try to remember to bookmark the each card so that you can hop just to the specific card you want to see me make. If you don't have, I think this will end up being about an hour-long video, and I understand not everybody has that time. So I hope you enjoy these cards, and let's make these. Okay, so starting off with my flat card, and I don't often use the glimmer of the month for my flat card, and I often actually don't even show the glimmering, but I wanted to show it this time because I'm glimmering onto acetate. I kind of forgot that I bought this from Spellbinders. This is the Spellbinders glimmer. It's sort of their specialty acetate, and it's designed so that the acetate, being that it's just plastic, it's not going to melt with the heat of the glimmer. So it's safe to glimmer onto. It's been designed specifically to glimmer onto. I have at other times glimmered onto other acetate, and it well, it doesn't necessarily like melt and make a melty kind of mess on your machine. Sometimes it actually warps a little bit, and you don't want that either. The Spellbinders acetate, it was perfect, stayed perfectly flat, was really nice. Now the second bit that I'm going to glimmer, this is actually a glitter cardstock by Spellbinders that I am glimmering onto. It's part of their new treasure collection, which I think is really fabulous. And in these collections, it's cardstock of various different finishes in a particular metallic. So there's going to be gold, silver, and I think a rose gold. And it's great because you get a glitter, you get like a really shiny mirror foiled cardstock, you have a more satin finish foiled cardstock, you've got a more pearlescent finish. I think in total there's 5 different finishes, and you get 2 or 3 sheets of each. But I'll leave links to everything in the description box below if you want to check that out. Glimmered up beautifully. I used black and I glimmered onto the glitter, gold glitter cardstock, and the glitter glimmer collection, it does come with the coordinating dies to cut it out. Now I forgot to show on camera, but I did glimmer the joy sentiment onto the inside of the card, and I just chopped off most of, like, all but maybe about 1.25 inches of my card front. And what I'm going to replace that with is this acetate panel. I'm going to trim off about 1/16 of an inch because I am adhering it inside the fold. And I am, now this is, anytime you kind of glue or apply adhesive to acetate, there's the chance that you're going to be able to see that acetate, but one thing that you can do is just line everything with adhesive. So it's more noticeable when there's a difference between where there is and where there isn't adhesive. But if you've got adhesive everywhere, then it's all gonna look the same or similar. Now the easier way to do this is to just line this up at the bottom against the inside of the card, and then just close that little remaining inch and a half or so right on top. And that way everything's nice and straight, and you get this kind of neat look of a see-through card front. and when you open it, you still have the sentiment joy. I wasn't sure if I was going to add more florals to this because there's some really beautiful florals in some of the other club kits, but instead I went with the die cut version of Wishing You at the front to give me that a little bit of a shaped border at the top there. And I did put a strip of that same glitter cardstock just to anchor things at the bottom. So next up is my layered card, and I'm going to start off with some stenciling. So the stencil of the month actually has, I think it ends up being 5 stencils, and you even have the mask for this bow. So this panel here is just that leftover card front from my previous card. And so I'm going to start with the stencil that has the bow. There's a layered set of 2. And so this top one, I am stenciling a darker red so that, and I think you could, I don't know if I was meant to do, usually you stencil the darker, the lighter one first and then the darker one next. I think that turned out okay. That piece that I just attached there, that's the mask. So that actually covers up the bow that we just stenciled. And now you can stencil or do whatever you'd like if you want to do more ink blending around it to make your gift box, because that's what I'm going for, a solid color gift box. So there's a lot of options. I like that they included the mask. I think that's really cool because then you can do fun techniques like these. Now, I am only using one of the remaining stencils, and this is actually meant, this particular stencil, it's meant to actually be a layer that goes with the other stencils in the set to create this sort of like your leafy background with holly berries, so it's kind of leaves and berries. So it's meant to be a part of a 3-layer stencil, but I'm using it by myself as just polka dots. So the idea being that this will be sort of my polka dot pattern paper. So that's what I mean, that like you can, with these stencils, you can kind of use them however you want. You don't necessarily have to use all of the layers if you don't want to. And I thought this one was just like a fun random polka dot pattern. And so I'm just twisting, turning it. I've got a few different shades of green. I don't care if they are overlapping with each other. It's a little bit of a bokeh effect, not really, but because usually with bokeh you have different size circles, but it's kind of similar. I'm going for some light greens, some dark greens, just to have some variety. And all I'm looking to do as I lift the stencil up each time is I'm just trying to balance things out a little bit. So where I feel like I need some darker polka dots, I add some darker polka dots. Where I feel like I need some lighter polka dots, I'll add that. And that way the pattern's a little bit all over. It's nicely, it's like kind of the same density. There aren't a lot of open areas. And there aren't too many areas that are like really dark or really light. The little bit of scrap cardstock that I have here, I just took one of my mid shades of green and I swiped it across just some white cardstock. That way I have the exact shade of green that I've used for my polka dot pattern. And that's going to be the lid of my box here, my gift box. And the stencil of the month has, it's all sentiments, which is really fabulous because for Christmas time, I think you can never have too many sentiments. And here I've done the same thing. I just took, instead of a mid-tone green, I just took my lightest green. And from the leftover of that little strip that I cut my gift box lid from, I just pulled out this, it's an older set. I think it's from Spellbinders, if I remember correctly, but I could be wrong on that. I'll try to find it. If I can find it, I'll link to it. But it's got these really cute little gift tags, so I thought that would be fun to add. And then I've got one of the sub-sentiments cut out. There is one coordinating die, like a banner die that will cut out the all the sub-sentiments because they're all the same size. They're different lengths, but they're the same height. And then you have a lot of the larger, more scripty sentiments, which each have their own coordinating die. So I am going to just get this attached here. And this isn't super thick, super layered. Really the only part that's layered, because otherwise this is a relatively flat card as well. But I wanted the lid to be a little bit more dimensional, so I'm gonna actually add. Actually, it turns out I should have used my thicker foam because I actually layered 2 thicknesses of my low profile foam. One just didn't seem enough. I just wanted this lid to really feel like it's resting on top of and feel like it's a little bit more raised. And so I ended up adding a second layer of that foam, and I ended up attaching this on a little bit of a angle as if you're like kind of in the midst of opening. I think that would have worked better if I did the no peeking sentiment to make it seem like, somebody's trying to open their gift box early. But I just like the sentiment delivering holiday cheer a little bit better than no peeking. So, but I still like that wonky. I just like for things to be wonky sometimes. That way it doesn't have to feel so perfect. Especially since the box wasn't going to be centered on my card. I think it helps to cover that up. All right, so now on to my interactive card. This features the small die of the month, which is an ice skate that you can put together. Lots of layers to this. Oh my gosh, I just really love all of these kind of boots and different kind of shoe wear, footwear. It's really amazing all the details that you get to this. So here too, I have cut out of the gold treasure cardstock bundle, a lot of different bits from the various different finishes. So I have the gold mirror cardstock. Now the one I use for the laces is it's not the same one as in the treasured one. The treasured one is single-sided mirror. I think what I have here, it was just leftover from possibly a Spellbinders card kit of the past, in fact. But just know that what you get in the Treasured collection is the poinsettias that I have cut out. It's much shinier. It's like a high gloss mirror, and it's single-sided, which is kind of nice because then on the back, it's more like your white cardstock, so it's a little bit easier to adhere because with double-sided mirror card, it can take a while for that to dry when you glue because of that mirror finish. So I've got my skates assembled, and then I have various foliage cut out of the pearlescent, the glitter cardstock, and then I've got the poinsettia flower. I've die cut that twice out of the high gloss mirror cardstock. And my interactive card is going to be a spinner. It's been a while since I've made one of these. It took me forever to find my invisible thread. That might have if I hadn't have found that, I might have had to come up with a plan B, because when I saw the skates, I knew I wanted to have them spin. Kind of like a figure skater spinning, but not really. But that was the idea that I had conceptually in my mind. And I know that it's just been so long. I think it's been maybe over like 2 years since I've made a spinner card. So I had to really rummage to find my invisible thread, but it was actually, it's like right next to me. It's pretty close by. So what I've done here is I've taken one of the Spellbinders. It's one of their more recent shaped, nested shape dies. This is the scallop tag die set. And what I've done is die cut at the same time through a panel. This is going to be a 5x7 card. So I've got a panel cut to 5x7, and I lined that up with the front of my card base. and die cut through them at the same time. Now be sure don't cut through both layers of your card base, only cut through the front of your card base. And then that ensures that you have the aperture opening that's identical between the two pieces. And so I took the 3D embossing folder of the month and I've embossed that 5x7 panel with the aperture opening through it. And now I know this is going to be impossible to see because I'm using my invisible thread. This is from Gutermann. They make some really nice high quality sewing thread, and you could use something like, I think I've heard suggested like a fishing line might be pretty similar. So what I'm going to do is I've got my thread here. It's still on the spool because I don't know how long a stretch I need. I'm going to tape that down with Scotch tape. Don't worry, that's going to get covered up. Nobody's going to see it. Burnish that down really well so that it's well secured. Pull this so that it's nice and taut. Not so much that it's going to yank out from under the Scotch tape, but just nice and taut. You don't want any slack because the more taut it is, the better your die cuts will spin. So then I just cut off the excess after I Scotch taped it down to the bottom of the aperture opening there. And so that's what's going to suspend our skates within this aperture opening. Now, normally when I do a spinner card like this, I like to have the front and the back actually be finished so that it looks good from the front and the back. But in this case, because we don't have the mirror of the ice skates, I am just going to glue two fronts together. And the idea is that you want to sandwich your invisible thread between two die cuts. That's how the die cuts are going to be attached and suspended. And that's why to use the invisible thread, so that it is going to be give the illusion that these are just kind of hanging in midair. Now you want to make sure that when you're attaching these that you're well within your aperture opening. So that's why I'm working with my card base closed like this, so that I can make sure the edge of the skates, they are within that frame, and that way they're gonna spin nicely. Now I just put just a bit of liner. I've been crafting with the with some 6x6 washi sheets. So as I've been doing that, I save the little adhesive liner sheets because they're great for things like this, where you can just put it behind whatever you're gluing down, and if a little bit of that liquid adhesive oozes out, then you've protected the whatever's behind it so that you don't accidentally glue it down. That's what's great about the liner sheets, is that it's not going to attach. You can pull it off if it does dry on the adhesive sheet. So I did a little bit of a test just to make sure that when you wind up the these ice skates that it will spin. What I thought I would add, though, is I do want them to feel like they are hanging from something. So I pulled out some gold DMC embroidery floss. You can get this at Spellbinders as well. It's their, I can't even remember the name of it. It's part of their metallic, DMC's metallic. Is it Diamante? I don't know. It's really lovely. You can get like a 4-pack, I think. And so all I'm going to do is I'm actually making this so that it is intentionally visible. So I've anchored it with, again, some Scotch tape right onto the back of my ice skate here. And I wrapped it around and right over the top of my card. And I'm just going to continue to tack it down with Scotch tape and wrap it a couple times just to give it a little bit of thickness. There's a couple reasons for this. For one, it actually helps to secure your ice skates to the card, and so it's not just held on by the invisible thread, but as well, having all of these thicknesses of the embroidery floss, it also helps to tighten up the thread that's holding these ice skates. And when you wind this up, like when you set it up so that it spins, the tighter it ends up being, the quicker it'll spin, because there's more tension, right? So if you wind this up, and the thicker, that the more layers, or the more sort of rounds, loops that you wrap the gold thread, it just makes it thicker, so that when you wind up the ice skates, it builds up more tension. And then when you let go, the more tension that's been built up, when you let go, it's going to spin a lot more quickly to release that tension. And I wanted to clean this up a little bit. Now, I'm not going to be able to decorate a full ice skate so that it looks like a full ice skate, but I did want to cover up that thread. And if I had thought about it, I would have covered up the bottom boot a little bit more cleanly so that it makes a little bit more sense. But you're not going to see the back of this too much. This is more just to clean this up a little bit so you don't have too many of the inner workings of the spinner showing, because they'll detract as it's spinning. But since you can build up a lot of tension with all those layers of the gold floss, it spins pretty closely, or spins pretty quickly, so you hardly see the back. So it's good to always be previewing. Anytime I make a kinetic card, anything that moves, anything that pops up, I always test it every step of the way through, because the earlier you catch any sort of mistake, the more the easier it's going to be to fix, especially if you've accidentally glued something down that shouldn't have been stuck down. Especially if you're using a liquid adhesive, you're going to have a lot of opportunity to kind of fix that. So I've glued my embossed panel over top the card front, and I really want to make sure that it's very secured. Even though this is 3D embossed, I burnish kind of aggressively where I know the threads are, because I really want those threads to be well secured. Now, what I wanted to do, I don't want to add too much color to this. I want to keep it very just tone on tone, but I feel like it's a little bit too white, and since the boots are just a flat white, I wanted to have some extra pattern or something behind the boots, so that you can maybe read the boots a little bit better. So I've taken another embossing folder. This is just a snowflake patterned one. So you have two different patterns. You've got the July 3D embossing folder of the month, which is your winter florals. And then behind the boots, though, is a second embossed panel with snowflakes. So just something a little bit different. And then I took the same nested shape dies, the scallop tag die set, and I'm going to cut a frame out of gold. And it's nice to have this treasure collection, because then I have some different options for finishes. Now, since I used a more mirror card on the laces of the boots, I decided to go with a glitter frame. And it's a nice little thin frame, but I think it just helps to really draw you in, and it kind of breaks out that aperture, really focuses you in on the ice skates, because it's I think it just helps to break up all that white space a little bit, since I am leaving quite a lot of white space here. I mean, it's embossed, but it's still white space. So I've got that glued down, and then and my spinner is basically done. The interactive component is complete. So now it's just the decorating of everything else. So I've got my embossed panel here and then I'll add my sentiment. So with my sentiment, I showed earlier that I have all of the like some foliage and that poinsettia. You haven't seen that make its appearance yet, but it will. It will. And those pieces, they're so lovely. You get actually, it's interesting because you have some of that winter foliage and the poinsettia. There's other leaves and berries and whatnot that I didn't actually even use as part of the small die of the month, but the large die of the month also has some winter foliage too. So you can actually, they're kind of the same scale also. So you could actually, if you wanted, get even more greenery if you wanted, and more sort of winter foliage if you wanted. So between the two die sets, that is, between the small and the large dies of the month. So I've got my poinsettia here. I'm just going to stack two of them together, offsetting it so that it makes a fuller bloom. So the top petal is I'm aiming for that to be somewhere in the middle, between two petals below it. And now I'm just going to just do a little bit of flower arranging. I've got the foliage here, and it's kind of nice. So I intentionally went with the gold finishes that are a little duller by comparison to that high gloss mirror card as the foliage, so that our flower here really shines. It's the shiniest bit of this whole thing. Like the laces on the ice skates, they're a mirror card, but it's not as shiny as the flower here. So the flower I'm using as my foreground, but also as sort of an anchor spot for the sentiment, which I chose Christmas wishes. And I'm just going to use a dotty tape runner to just kind of, create a little bit of a collage here where I just use some of these leaves and sprigs and whatnot, and try to fill this out a little bit. And they're just nice background filler. And because I'm working in this tight corner here, and these elements have they're really long, and they have long stems too. But if you're working in a tight space like I am, just, feel free to snip into these little elements and get them down to the length that you need. So, it's fun to just kind of have a little bit of a play. I always try to die cut more than I think I'll need so that I can not have to take a break and do more die cutting as I'm doing my arranging. So that will just about wrap up my spinner card. And look at that. I'll give you a close-up look at everything at the end. But now onto my pop-up card. So I'm going to first assemble everything, all the components that I need. This pop-up, the large die of the month it's a lot. You get a lot in here. So first and foremost, you have this birdhouse, which I think is really, really lovely. It is... maybe you could use this. I think you could use this all year long. But the roof of the birdhouse, it has some very soft, rounded corners, which is suggestive of a snow-covered birdhouse. And you've got some extra pieces that you can use for the roofing. Even the shadow. It even has that shadow of the roof, like underneath. Really, I just love that detail. Really, really fabulous. Same thing with this hole that's cut into the birdhouse. There's actually two ovals, and those two ovals give you the larger of the two. It has a score line in it, and that's the shadow, just to have some depth to show that there's space inside of this birdhouse. And then the smaller of those two ovals is can layer on top of it. Then you've got these wonderful cardinals that you can assemble, and I love, love, love the fact that there's one facing to the left and one facing to the right, because I feel like, this way when you have multiples of them on a scene together, you can they kind of look like they're interacting with each other. So I am using a liquid adhesive. This is actually an iridescent mirror card, and because it's got some high gloss to it, again, it's going to take some time to fully dry. So that's why you see me kind of dabbing at the glue. A, it's to kind of spread it out a little bit, and B, it's so that there's like a very thin layer, and that way it's gonna grab a little bit faster, it's gonna dry a little bit faster, because the thinner, I mean, this is already a pretty quick grab glue. Oh, I've been asked what's in this glue bottle. It's Lineco pH neutral, which is a fabulous, fabulous adhesive. I love Barely Arts glue, which is, I think, thicker and quicker grabbing, but the Lineco pH neutral is just at a way lower price point. And so if you're cost conscious, then that might be a better alternative. And it's got all the same properties as the Barely Arts glue, in the sense that it's archival, it's acid free, all of that good stuff. And so now that I have all of my elements cut and assembled, I'm gonna start with my pop-up card. I always like to start on the outside of the card and get that sorted out, so that, because once you add everything to the middle, it's, if you need to glue anything down to the front of your card, or like stamp anything directly onto your card front, you're not going to have a nice level flat surface anymore once the pop-up mechanism gets attached. So that's why I like to do this first. And I like to keep it super simple on the outside, because the inside takes forever as it is. But more importantly, I kind of like for the outside to be a little understated, and that way when you open up the card, it just feels like, it feels more impressive, by contrast. But the reality is, I actually really love how this card turned out. It would be a really good clean and simple card, which, if you've seen my other series that I do, I have a case series where I do case two ways, copy and share and clean and simple. And I make 2 cards in that series, and so I've been getting some practice at clean and simple, and I think this one hits the mark. Look at all that white space. And it's not even like embossed or anything. It's like the card front white. Now, I did add a little bit of blue ink blending just in a little circle there, just to give a little spotlight to our cardinal. Mostly because I wanted to use these little snow mounds that you can add to the branch of this really long branch. It's really lovely. And I wanted to use that little snow mound, but you can't, with the white on white, you could hardly see it and really appreciate that it's even there. And so that's why I did that little bit of blue, so that you can really actually see that. And I am stamping directly onto my card front at this point, and so being very meticulous about lining it up correctly and really getting this just right. The other thing about doing the card front first also is that there's a lot of time and effort that goes into the pop-up card, and I would just want to make sure that the front is all sorted, and I don't want to do that afterwards, for all of the mechanical reasons of it just not being, the card base not being flat anymore, but also because I just don't want to mess up. It would be really sad to get the pop-up mechanism just the way that you want it, only to like kind of mess up on the card front. I mean, there's going to be solutions to that, but all the same, I'd rather have this, the front portion nice and settled and all done, and then I can focus on my pop-up. So, speaking of my pop-up, I'm going to start with this bit of scrap cardstock. I cut it to 2 3/8 of an inch. That's rather random. And I scored a line at 3/8 of an inch. And that's going to be a glue tab. Now, initially I made my pencil mark at 5.5. That's not correct. You want your pencil mark to be at the width of your card. So 5 inches is where you want to put this pencil mark. And at the score line, I just made a little V. The score line we want at the bottom. The score line is going to be at the bottom of our mechanism. And I want to score a 45-degree angle from that 5-inch mark at the bottom. And so my scoreboard has like an envelope maker. So all I've done is line this up against the angle of my envelope maker so that I cut out a notch there so that you can see where the tip of that pencil mark was. And all I did was line that up on my scoring track, which is my cutting track, but I was using it to score. And that's how I was able to score like a perfect 45 degrees and have that V that I need for my pop-up mechanism. So then what you can do once you have that is I'm just going to line this up so that the score line is parallel on that opposite edge of the V. And I'm going to miter cut my glue tab. So your piece is going to end up looking a little something like this. You're going to have basically if you're going to adapt this to a different card size, you just need to cut or not cut, but make a pencil mark at the width of it. And then basically just score a V starting at that score line. And then that's it. That gives us a glue tab to glue onto the inside of our card, and then a glue tab. And I'm just going, this is how I always approach my pop-up cards. I always do a little bit of temporary tape to just dry run the mechanism, make sure it opens the way I expect. And so I've taped down that long glue tab. And then this angled glue tab, I'm going to just put, again, this is Scotch removable tape. And I've just taped that so that it attaches to our card front. So that when you open it, you get this stand that pops up. And now on that stand, I can create a scene. And so I want to make sure that I can still fit my birdhouse here and have everything close and still get hidden behind my card front. It's kind of close. I mean, this would work, but it's kind of close. So because it's a little bit too close for comfort, doesn't give you much wiggle room, I'm just going to trim this down so that it's not as tall. It's rather arbitrary, this piece. And this is just, I'm not following anyone else's tutorials, so this is why when you see me make my pop-up cards or my interactive cards, a lot of it's just me kind of figuring it out along the way, and that's why I don't have precise measurements for you. But I hope it's helpful to you to still see the process, because if you're adapting this to a different card size, or if you just want to figure out, like, what are some popular mechanics, pop-up mechanics, and conceptually, how do you create them? Hopefully that just helps. But I'm going to line this up on my mat here just so that you can maybe get a sense for the sizing of this. So the height of this is around 2 inches. I mean, technically maybe 2 1/8, and I've got a 3/8 inch glue tab. At that 5-inch mark is where you want to put that pencil mark, and that's the bottom of your V. And if you cut a piece that's 7 inches wide, I think they'll be plenty long. You'll have to a little bit that you need to trim off. But hopefully that helps you if you're looking for actual measurements. Start there and then you can kind of adapt. Adapt as you need. And this is for a 5x7. If you were making this for an A2 card, basically where I've got that 5-inch, you would just make this the width of your A2, so 4 1/4. And then I've used about 3/8 inch glue tabs. You can use whatever width glue tab you want, but basically you score a line at the bottom for your glue tab, and at that score line, you want to give yourself a pencil mark and then score a V. The V is important because that's how this piece gets attached to the card front, and gives you a way to pop this whole thing up so that it's nice and straight. So wherever the V ends up being on the left side, just score it out and then cut yourself a little glue tab right along that diagonal edge. So I hope that helps. I know the measurements aren't precise, but hopefully conceptually this helps to show you what this pop-up or how this pop-up mechanism looks and functions to give you this particular look, so that when you open, because this can still be then a side opening card, as opposed to normally when I do scenes like this, it would be top opening and it's a different pop-up mechanism altogether. But this allows you to have a side open card and just gives you something different. It's a tool in your toolbox. Okay, so now when you go to actually adhere this, we're going to glue this into our card now, just on those glue tabs. And I've already put some double-sided dry adhesive. Now here you want to make sure that when you fold this down in this way as I've done it, everything is inside your card. But that way this whole mechanism is hidden. And if you didn't want this to go, the full length, you could always cut this down. But I've fit this so that I know along the right hand edge it's not hanging over, along the top edge it's not hanging over, and the point of that triangle where we made the V, the bottom of the V, it's right up next to our score line of the inside of the card where the card is folded, but it's not crossing over. You just want it to kind of just touch butt up right against it, but you don't want to cross over the that fold line, because then your card's not going to fold down flatly. And same with the glue tab. That's another reason why I mitered it, so that it will not cross over the fold of the card. Now, I use a combination of a dry adhesive and a liquid adhesive, so that the liquid adhesive is going to give me a nice permanent stick. The dry adhesive gives me a quick grab. If you're only using a liquid adhesive, give this time to dry. You gotta be patient. Give it time to really, really grab and hold firm before you start opening it. But whatever adhesive you use, just make sure you burnish it really well, because then that'll just help it to be more secure. Now, I did use a little bit of 3D glue gel on my card front, so I'm gonna be mindful not to push down too hard on my card front. So just keep that in mind if you're using a 3D glue gel as well. And now comes the fun part. You can start to decorate. Now, as you are decorating, make sure you're only gluing things to the mechanism, because if you put adhesive beyond that, you might actually glue it down to something that accidentally closes, that glues your card shut, essentially. We don't want that, because the mechanism that we glued onto our card base, that needs to move. That needs to, pop up. And so if you glue anything down that accidentally glues down to your card base or where it shouldn't, then it's going to inhibit the ability for that mechanism to pop up completely. Now the back of the house, normally I would try to make it look a little bit neater, but to be honest, you know, I don't think anyone's gonna really look behind there, and so I didn't take the time to do it. But what I did want to add was just a bit of black cardstock behind the opening, behind the hole, because when the die cuts through it, it's there was like a little sliver of a gap that I could still see. And I didn't like that sliver of a gap because you're going to be able to see it because it's popped up and it's, you know, you can see right through. If there's light coming through, you're going to be able to see it. So that's why I backed it with some black so that whatever little gap there is, it's not going to be as, it's not going to be visible. It'll just look like shadow. But also another good reason to do that, add that little black strip there, it also helps to kind of stabilize our birdhouse a little bit. I wish I had actually cut it to be a little bit taller because the birdhouse is so tall. And my mechanism, remember how I trimmed it down a little bit? It's short compared to the birdhouse. And so by having that stand there, it kind of helps it to stand upright a little bit. So kind of wish I had actually made that a little bit taller. If you do it, you should make it taller. And this little triangle here, it's another opportunity for us to pop something up. So I've added an acetate pop-up stand. I've glued it with some dry adhesive to the bottom, and then I ran a dotty tape runner down the center of one of my cardinals, the one that looks more like it's in flight. And I attach my cardinal to that acetate stand. So now that cardinal looks like she's flying. So she's kind of popping up mid-air. And of course, you know, open and close your pop-up so that anytime you add something, one, you are assured that you can still close down your card and open it. Two, when you close your card, you want to make sure that you can make sure that everything's hidden as well. Now here's another acetate, and this is a pop-up mechanism that is pretty common. It's just a strip of acetate. I scored 3/8 of an inch. That's going to be a glue tab. From that line, I scored another 1/2 inch. So 3/8 of an inch and then score again at 7/8. On the opposite end, score at 1/2 an inch. So 1/2 an inch is the rise. So that's going to be kind of the height. And then the 3/8 of an inch will glue down to our base. The 1/2 inch on the opposite end, that will actually glue to our first pop-up stand. So once you have one pop-up stand, you can use that pop-up mechanism. You can use that pop-up mechanism to then attach more pop-up mechanisms. So I'm going to use the original pop-up mechanism. I'm going to glue this 1/2 inch glue tab of our acetate pop-up stand here. And then I am going to glue the 3/8 inch glue tab to the bottom of our card base. Now, here's the thing with this. You want to make sure that when you glue this down, fold at that second score line. So fold that down and then close your card. And your that 3/8 inch glue tab will find its place. So that's our more sort of standard pop-up stand, and that gives me it looks like this from the side. It's nice and clear, so it helps you to kind of just create another scene. So if our birdhouse is like the background, then I can kind of have a mid-ground scene. And so what I'm gonna do is cut a bit more of this acetate. Now I'm using a thicker acetate. You want something that has a little bit more sturdiness, a little bit more structure to it. I'm not using my thin acetate that I would normally use for a shaker card. I'm using construction weight acetate. And I attached to my pop-up stand just a clear straight piece. And that way I can have a little bit more stability to glue my this third bird, because I assembled all these birds, I may as well use them all. So I've got the one single bird on the outside, and then when you open the card you have a little flock of them on the inside here. And so I've got that bird popped up as sort of like my mid-ground scene. So it's kind of cool. He's just like standing out there, hanging out. So it almost seems like I have well, actually, if you think about it a little bit, maybe my birdhouse is the mid-ground. My flying bird is like more towards the background. He's a little bit behind the house. And then this third bird that I just added, he's more my foreground. So it's more layers, it's more depth, it's more dimension. It just helps to create a more fun scene. And you do want to make sure you open and close your pop-up often so that you can make sure that, that bird, it looks like it's hanging off the edge of the outside of the card, but he's not. When you fold him, it's just like a trick of the angle, how the camera's positioned. But when you fold him down, he's completely hidden inside. Now, I'm going to continue to decorate with some of these, holly leaves and berries. Again, you want to make sure, like at this edge here where I attach on the left side, where it kind of overlaps into that triangle, make sure you're not gluing past that score line, because that piece needs to fold backwards. If you glued it down, then you wouldn't be able to fold this down flat again. And the reason why I was saying that the third bird that I added was my midground was because I was thinking of this little grouping of holly leaves and berries as my foreground. It's not popped up, it's not dimensional, standing, but it's just kind of nice. I thought maybe this would be like a good place where you would sign, like write a little bit of a message or something and then sign your card like to the right of this little grouping here. So that's why I put that there, to kind of have a spot to put your message that's, feels like it's not quite part of the scene. And I had the third leftover snowdrift, so I just decided to add it. I'm like looking around my desk at all the extra little die cuts that I have, and I figure, why not just use it? Now here, I did not think ahead to assemble a pine cone. I didn't think I would need it, but I did take a pause and assemble this pine cone. It's just 2 layers. It's pretty quick and simple to put together. But I thought it would be a good grouping for the leaves on the opposite side there. And so I've added that. And again, just really making sure I always close this down and that everything moves and is nice and flat. I'm going to tuck in a little berry here, and that's going to pretty much complete my pop-up card. You could definitely go to town with this and add even more to it if you wanted, but I think I've added quite a lot already. So here's a final close-up look at the 4 cards that I created. This is my flat card featuring the Glimmer of the Month, the new treasure collection of cardstocks, and as well the I think that's it, actually. It's just the Glimmer of the Month. Wishing You is actually glimmered right onto that glitter cardstock. This is my layered card. It features the stencil of the month, and the clear stamp of the month is where the sentiment comes from. And really, really fun set. I didn't even use 2 of the layering stencils, so plenty more you can do with that one to create some really lovely backgrounds. This is my interactive card. It's a spinner card featuring the 3D embossing folder of the month, the small die of the month, which is where you get the ice skates, and the winter foliage and poinsettia. The sentiment is also from the clear stamp of the month. And this spinner card is super fun. Really easy card to do. I don't know why I don't do this card more often, but it's really fun. Holiday cards are a good time to really bring out all of your best interactive cards. I feel like they're gonna get remembered more. So I love going all out for the holidays. Here is my last card, my pop-up card. Really love the front of this card. This I might do again as just a flat card. Love the look of that. Look how clean and simple it is. I hope you all are proud of me, for folks who watch my channel often, because clean and simple is hard for me. And here's that pop-up card with our scene here. We've got our little bird standing in a snowdrift in front. You go back a little bit further and you see a birdhouse with another cardinal. And then finally behind him, you see a bird in flight. So really, really fun. I had loads of fun with this pop-up card. It might be my favorite. I don't know. You all let me know what your favorite is. So often my pop-up card, I like the inside, but the outside I'm just kind of, oh, it's nice. It's probably not my favorite, but I think my pop-up card this month, I kind of like the outside and the inside almost equally. So let me know what you think. Thanks so much for hanging with me today, and I'll leave links to everything in the description box below. Until next time, happy crafting and have a fabulous day. Bye.